our instinct, if you call me and want to sell me something, is to just hang up the phone. Like, I'm going to end this, and I will look for any out. As soon as you give me an out, I'm done. And so you've got to get to a place where you're getting to a place where people are more than likely going to want to answer you because you sound different, you sound energetic, you sound enthusiastic. People do not want to talk to people who call up and be like, hi, Shelby, you are on my website and maybe looked at a house, like, and maybe not in those words, but I can't tell you how many sales calls I get that somebody sounds that effective or ineffective.
Real Estate Rockstars, welcome back. I am Shelby Johnson, and we got Scott Smith in the house today. He is out of Denver, Colorado, been an agent for 7 years, but back in the day, he was a loan officer, and he's got 30 years of sales calls underneath his belt, which is really fun because later in the show, we are going to dive deep into some scripting, some role play, and give you guys exactly what to say to build trust and solidify that client as yours. But first, some stats. So Scott is the founder of a franchise called You First Realty. And although he doesn't close as many transactions today, this last year he did 20 and about 10 million in volume. He has this franchise of now he has 13 agents within his brokerage. And we are going to dive deep into that today. So Scott, welcome. So excited to have you here.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on, Shelby. It's a pleasure.
Yes, the pleasure is all mine. Okay, let's go back, Scott. So I know just enough to be dangerous about how you were in the lending side of the business. So can you give us some more context? Take us back in time, and how did you get to be where you are today?
Sure. So I owned a small mortgage company back in the mid 2000s. And like a lot of people after 2008, 2009, really had a life reset, handed back about $4 million worth of real estate to the banks, moved out of my house in a snowstorm with my 5-month-old baby girl, and went back into corporate America for a few years. Always loved real estate. Got to a point in my life in my mid 40s where I realized that I was either going to be stuck in corporate America for the rest of my life, or I needed to do something different. And I was in a unique situation. And so I was able to get out and go get my real estate license. Was one of the top agents at You First Realty for a number of years. And when I got the opportunity, I bought the first franchise when they opened up the franchise model. And now I've got about 13 agents that work with me, and I absolutely love my business.
Dude, that is so cool. I am so curious about buying a franchise or opening up a franchise. Like, what does that look like? Because people all the time, they're like, oh, I'm going to start a team or I'm going to start a brokerage, but you don't hear as often the franchise piece. Can you take us through that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So Brandon over at You First has a phenomenal system. I love the way he trains. I love the way he coaches. And I wanted to go out on my own for a while, but the best part of buying a franchise is I get to keep all the pieces that I love about what Brandon does, and then I just get to add my flavor to it. So financially, it made sense. It was a small investment, but with beginning to make a higher split on my own deals, I made that money back relatively quickly. So financially, it was a no-brainer. And I love the fact that they handle training. They handle a lot of the minutia stuff that I don't want to deal with. So I really get to just focus on coaching agents. We do team meetings together with corporate. We do a lot of stuff. My office is really close to them. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. I own my own brokerage, but I've got a system that works that I'm able to lean on, and people that I'm close to that I'm able to tap into when I need help.
Yeah. And starting something on your own can be really scary too. You know, you're just like, your eyes are closed. You're like wading into the unknown, feeling out for walls. You know, am I going to hit anything? So it does make sense to me about why, if you already know his systems and the model and who they are as people, why expanding that way makes sense. I'm curious, and I don't know if you're allowed to share about like the costs. What is it? What did it cost? Yeah.
Yeah. It was $25,000 to buy my franchise. And like I said, so we were I was at I think the comp plan I was on back then was like a 75-25 split. And once I became an owner, all I owed was the franchise fee. So I basically went from 75 to 95, and that 20% on all my deals made that 25 grand back well before the first year was up. So it was a better deal for me than it was for Brandon.
That's what I was thinking.
I tell him that all the time. Like, you let me buy a franchise was a win for me, and maybe not a win for you because he lost all my production, but he gained, he gains my brokerage. So but it was a definite win for me.
One more question before we move on to like agent, more tactical things. So was it a one-time 25,000 purchase,
Yep.
or like, does he get a flow from the agents within your brokerage?
He gets 5%. He gets 5% until they cap.
What's cap?
So they cap at $24,000.
Okay.
So $24,000 in profit to the brokerage, and the agent's cap. And then, but he gets 5% of their production up to there.
Okay, gotcha. All right, I might loop back to this later, depending on how the conversation goes.
I don't mind answering questions.
This
is like real estate is a money-based business. It's always weird to me when people don't want to talk about the money. Like, this is why everybody gets into real estate, and you need to understand, the financial piece of it if you're going to do it.
Yeah, I 100% feel the same, and I do get in trouble sometimes though, because I ask the questions, hey, like, what does that look like money-wise? And they're like, oh, I don't feel like sharing. I'm like, damn it, we want to know. But okay, Scott, let's talk about, I know for the toolbox, which listeners, if this is the first time you're listening to it, our guests do provide a tool for you for free, which you can get at realestaterockstarsnetwork.com and then click toolbox. But Scott, what did you bring for us today?
Yeah. So what I did was I uploaded a training that I do for my agents on building rapport and relationships. And it's really about how to establish client relationships and talking about kind of how to set up for a meeting, what to do at that meeting, and then how to turn that into a successful meeting. So really just focusing on, attitude and mindset, getting ready and conducting those kind of first initial in-person meetings that you have with clients.
So what is it? What is the, would you mind telling us in more detail? So
no, absolutely. So
yeah, please.
I think really in the beginning, you've got to have an initial mindset of number one, being patient. And sometimes people mistake being patient for being lazy. And I think that's a big trope. Being patient means that you wait for your opportunity and you don't force the opportunity. But once that opportunity presents itself, then you definitely need to execute. So it's really just waiting for the conversation to develop to give you an open window to be able to either push the deal forward or push the conversation forward or push the meeting forward. If you try to rush things, people feel that, and it's kind of a turnoff. If you've ever been on a date and somebody's pushing things too hard, you're like, oh my God, this dude's a creep, right? Like, it's the same with a client. If you feel creepy, they're going to back off. So you've really got to give them the opportunity to get to where you need them to be on their own. But then once they're there, don't be afraid to move, right? I think that's really important.
It's so funny that you say that.
Oh no, go ahead.
Quick story real quick. I was actually having a conversation very similar the other day with a newer agent, and he's like, yeah, everyone who comments on my, posts on social media, I immediately reach out and are like, hey, are you interested in buying, selling, or investing? And a similar analogy to the creepy guy on a date. It's like when you walk into a store, and the salespeople just come at you and they're like, hey, what can I help you with? Hey, what are you looking for? Your instinct, even though you're there for something specific, your instinct is like, nope, I'm good, nothing. So I totally agree with what you're saying about the patience. And I did not mean to interrupt. Scott?
No, you're fine. Interrupt me all you want. This is your show. You're not even interrupting. I think the other piece is being genuine. If you're not yourself, people can tell that right away. And I feel like sometimes agents want to be a stereotype, and stereotypes don't work because people can tell when you're not being genuine. So you really need to be yourself and be comfortable in being yourself around people. My best friend, who's actually I've known him for 20 years. He's the ops manager at corporate. He says things on the phone that I could never get away with saying. And it's just because people take him for who he is. And sometimes he said stuff and I'll cringe like, oh my God, did you just say that? And people laugh and they joke with him and he takes them to the next level. He's one of the best prospectors I've ever met. And it's really because Cody is able to take that being genuine piece at a higher level than anybody I've ever met in my life. I really think you got to be genuine on every call.
Do you have an example? I'm dying. Tell me. What does he say?
You really put me on the spot. I don't have an example right now, but
we got to phone him in. Just kidding. That's a joke.
I will phone him in, but I don't know if you want to, he says some ridiculous, it's just things that you might think in a moment that you would never say that comes out of his mouth, right? It's crazy. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. So you're patient. We're patient. We're going to let the conversation flow naturally, probably ask questions to mirror them, to make them feel more confident, comfortable with you, and then being genuine. Okay, I'm with you.
Yep.
We got the patient, we got the genuine.
And then you want to be reliable, right? You want to make sure that you answer your phone. When you tell them a lot of people will ask you questions and you won't know the answer. And the expectation is not that you know the answer to every question that you're ever asked. One of the things I tell people when they ask me a question that I don't know is I will just simply tell them, look, I'm 99% sure I know the answer to that question, but I just want to double check and make sure I'm right. And then the most important piece of that is the follow-up, because if you don't follow up, then they're gonna take that statement coming out of you as a push-off, as opposed to, hey, I'm going to get this information to you. So make sure if you tell somebody I'm going to get back to you with that you absolutely get back to them with it. Plus, it gives you a reason for a call, because I think one of the most important things about when you call somebody is not I hate calling to check in or I just wanted to see how it's going. I'm never doing that. I'm always calling for some reason, and that's to push the deal forward. The reason that I'm going to call is though I've usually have either a question that wasn't answered, or some piece of value that I can give them for the call. And then that allows me to get in and push that call forward without really checking in on people. I hate when agents call to check in. It never gets anybody anywhere.
So let's say hypothetically, you don't have a piece of value, you're trying to find a way to push the deal forward and have a reason to call someone, and you don't want to say that you're just checking in. What are some good options for people to use in lieu of just checking in?
So what I would, if it's somebody who is stagnant, right? They're on the fence. You're not sure, you haven't been able to schedule an appointment for them. I would just call and be like, oh my gosh, the last time we talked, you've really been on my mind. I know that you said that you weren't really looking to buy right now because rates were so high, but this thing's just been kind of weighing on me. And I want to make sure that we talked about the cost of waiting. And then I'll break down the cost of waiting. If you don't know what that is, basically it's running through a financial scenario. I was gonna be
break it down for us. I feel like that would be super valuable. I'm the client and you're calling me and it's been weighing on your minds, and hit me.
Here's a quick commercial break from our sponsor, Ryan Pineda.
If you are trying to grow your real estate investing business, then you need to join us at Wealthy Investor. If you have no idea what Wealthy Investor is, it is our coaching program and community. We have helped thousands of students worldwide grow their business. Now, it doesn't matter if you're just getting started and you're trying to get that first deal. We can help you do that. If you're trying to scale your business and go from a few deals a year to a few deals a month, or even 7 figures a year, we can help you do that too. In fact, last year alone, we had over 30 students do over $1 million in revenue. And I'd love for you to be the next one. So it's pretty simple. If you're trying to grow your business and wholesale more homes, or flip more homes, or buy more rental properties, then you need to go to wealthyinvestor.com and book a free call with our team. It's super simple. We'll go on a strategy call with you and figure out how we can help you grow according to your needs. So all you got to do is go to wealthyinvestor.com, book the free call with the team, and we'll see you there.
Now back to the show.
Sure. So what we're going to talk about is, let's say you're looking at a $500,000 house and you want to wait a year or two to see what rates do. Well, you hear this a lot. You marry the house, you date the rate. And so let's understand that if rates come down in a year or two, you can always refinance. But the cost that you're going to pay for that house today is $500,000. If rates go down in the next 6 months, we're going to end up into a buying frenzy. It's going to push the cost of that house up. So you're not going to be shopping for a $500,000 house. That same house at $500,000, you're going to be shopping at $550,000, maybe $575,000. So that's $75,000 in equity that you would have lost. Plus, if you're renting right now, you're paying, $2,500 a month in rent. That's $30,000 a year. So now you're talking somewhere between $70,000 and $100,000 that you've lost over the next year or two simply by waiting, because you don't want to pay an extra $150, $200 a month in a payment. And that $150, $200 a month is a few $1,000s. And so you're going to lose an entire year's worth of income because you make $80,000 a year over the next 2 years simply because you wanted to wait. And if you really want to wait, then what we should do is go look at like $425,000 houses, because that's going to be your affordability a year or two down the road, based on what you make today. And you already told me you don't like those homes. So it just gives you a way in where you can start making money in the market, instead of like a client that I had, a couple of years ago who waited, and then the pandemic hit and prices shot up and now they can't afford to buy at all. And so you don't want to be that person. You want to get into this market now.
Dude, that was so good. And I feel like that was really helpful for listeners, because I think it's like those scenarios, like if we were to just gloss over it and just be like, yeah, and then I would weigh the options, like, no, those options, exactly what you just said, they can rewind that and like pull it out and use it in their own lives. I also really liked how you, at the end, used your third party story. I feel like that is so important to use when people are on the fence about you, or buying or selling or whatever. It's like, hey, I just recently went through the same scenario with X, Y, and Z, and this is how it played out. And then it kind of pulls them out of, it's not so direct. It's not like you need to do this. It's like, hey, this is what happened in another scenario, and this is what happened. Because now they can see themselves in that position without the direct, almost confrontation of you. So I just love the third party stories. I think you nailed that.
Well, and I think it's important for agents to know that you can tell a story that's not yours, okay? So if you're a brand new agent and you don't have any stories, find somebody in your brokerage who has a lot of stories and just pick their brain. Find out situations that their clients have been in, because you don't have to say it's my story. You can say my team, right? You don't have to set up a falsehood, but you can use other people's stories to prove points if you don't have your own stories, because stories sell. Right? Like it is just, they always do. When somebody can relate, it's the old feel, felt, found method, right? Other people feel the same way. This is how they felt. This is what we found. I mean, you can Google it. There's a million ways to use it. But telling people about what happened to other people makes it relate to them. And I love putting people in a group of smart people. So if you can tell somebody that something that they think is smart and you're validating that with another group of smart people, then you're making them feel better about themselves. And if you can make somebody feel better about themselves on a phone call with you, they're immediately going to feel better about you as well.
Yeah, those little things are so helpful. So whenever, as you're going through, the patience, the genuine, reliable, do what you say you're going to do and stuff like that, continue, but also tell us all these stories that we can pull out and use in our day-to-day. Please, Scott.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you need to have conversations, not sales pitches. So many times I hear from agents that, I'm a great salesperson. Being a real estate agent really isn't about being a salesperson. There are moments in our job where we have to sell, but what you need to be having with people is conversations, because I think conversations are much better and you're going to get much further along. And that's where, you kind of bring in that genuine part, asking questions. A lot of times people are afraid to ask the hard questions. They don't want to ask about money, right? Like you're having a conversation with somebody about a $500,000 house, but you're afraid to ask them how much money they make. Oh, that's the lender's job. No. You need to know that. You need to know how much money they make. How much money do they have saved? And you need to find ways of asking that aren't necessarily, that don't feel as intrusive, right? Like, oh my gosh, what kind of car do you drive? I drive a Ford Escort. Oh, wow. How long have you had it? I've had it for like 2-3 years. Oh my gosh, interest rates back then were so much better. What's your payment? Mine's like $500 a month. Oh, my payment's like $400 a month. Well, wow, I just found out how much someone's car payment was. And I didn't say, excuse me, what is their car payment? right? Like they wanted to tell me that because we were having a conversation. Like when people say they're renting, I'm like, oh my God, I hate renting. Renting's the worst. How much are you stuck paying? And they're like, oh, I pay like $2,200 a month. Oh, what do you get for that? Oh, I get this little 1-bedroom apartment. Oh, wow, that's terrible. Like my last 1-bedroom apartment, I wanted to like throw myself off the balcony because the people upstairs were pounding on the roof. And they're like, oh my God, it's the worst. And what you've just done is sold somebody on moving out of that 1-bedroom apartment into a condo, into a townhome, into anything else other than that apartment, because you have just discovered through a conversation that they hate renting as much as you do.
Those are slick. Love it. Because I was going to ask you, it's easy to say have conversations, not sales pitches, but it's the examples of, what do you exactly mean by that? And kind of the direction as well. So what information are you trying to pull out? Because in those examples, that was definitely money-based, where you're trying to figure out how much their car payment is, how much their rent is, and pain points within those. So how else are you using your conversations to gather information? What information are you gathering?
Yeah. So when you're talking about, I love to find out about people's families. So when you're talking about, oh, what's your dream home look like? How many bedrooms? How many bathrooms? And they're like, oh, I need 3 bedrooms. Oh, wow. What are the extra bedrooms for? Are they for kids? Are they for an office? Oh my gosh, we need for my kids. I'm like, oh, great. Well, what are the kids' names? Because if I can get somebody's kids' names and then I can talk, and this is something I use to bridge from a phone call to being out actually in the field. So if I learn their kids' names early, when I'm out showing and the kids are there, I'm like, oh my gosh, little Jesse, is that going to be your room? Oh yeah, I love this room, right? Like I can bond with I love making kids do all my work for me, because if you can get them to pick their rooms in a house, oh my gosh, you're like 70% getting the parents to buy that house. And I don't care what house people buy. I just wanted to help them buy a house. But if I know it's a good house for them and I know it's a affordable house for them, I will absolutely use their kids to go out and do the work for me by, oh, do you want to play basketball in this backyard? Oh yeah, Dad, can we get a hoop? Like all kinds of stuff, right? It's conversations with kids.
Quick pause. Are you looking for new ways to lead generate? Aaron built his own software to generate off-market seller leads and just released a version for you. PropHawk is the most efficient and least expensive software out there, designed to get you talking to sellers within minutes. With all the data of PropStream, the CRM power of InvestorFuse, and texting capabilities of Launch Control, you can get everything in one system for a fraction of the price of those others. Your investment is just $20 a month and includes an hour-long free onboarding call, so you start talking with sellers today. Go to prophawk.com and sign up. Now, back to the show.
Do you, when you first meet them or talking to them on the phone or whatever, and you get the kids' names, little Jesse, is that going into your CRM, or do you just have this amazing memory? Like, where are you keeping track of that? And are you reviewing it before you go on the appointment? Are you like in the car pulling it up? Like, what's little Jesse's name?
So in the section of my phone where I save people, where, most people just save like Bob Johnson, I will have like Bob, and I don't care about people's last names normally because I'll work out their last name. But normally it's like Bob, Susie, Jesse, Joanne. Mother's name is Barbara, right? Like, so sometimes the length of the name in my phone is very long because they're used to me having my phone in my hand. So if I forget somebody's name, it's really easily accessible.
That is an interesting hack. I do something similar, but I don't have all of the names. Like I usually just do reminders of who that person is or where I met them or whatever. But that's interesting. The whole family's name in one contact, right?
The whole family's name in one contact makes it much easier.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So now we asked questions about money. We asked questions about the family because you're having the kids essentially do the hard work on your behalf. What other conversations, not sales pitch tips are there? Yeah, so I think like in any conversation, the most important thing you can do is listen. I feel like, and this is why I'm a big script guy. I'm not a script guy because I think a script is a magic tool that will allow you to get somewhere on the phone. I'm a script guy because if I know what I'm going to say next, then
or I know what questions I'm going to ask next, then when the client is talking, I can listen, because that's what a conversation is, right? It's mainly you listening and then reacting based off what they said. And if what you're doing is waiting for your next turn to talk and trying to think of what you're going to say, you're going to lose the opportunity to really, truly actively listen to that client. So I think it's really important that you actively listen to everything that they say. So I do, that script to me is key. It's very important that if you're on a phone call, you should have a printed out script in front of you, up on your computer somewhere. If you get off topic, you put your finger where you were so that you can always come back to it. But I do think, especially if you're a brand new agent, look, I've been doing phone sales for 30 years, right? Like you could wake me up at 3:00 in the morning, put a phone to my ear and say like, hey, Barbara's interested in 123 Main Street. And me and Barbara are going to talk. Most people don't have that luxury. Most people, this is newer to them. And even agents that have been doing this a long time are typically afraid of the phone. So don't think you're too good to get a script. And there are a million scripts out there on the interweb that you can get. It doesn't even matter necessarily which one you use. Just get something that you're comfortable with and stick to it on phone calls so that you can actively listen and be able to actually have conversations with people.
100%. So sales gets a bad rep, right? When people hear sales, they have this negative connotation on them. But really what I think of when I hear sales is persuasive leadership in the direction that that person has already said that they want to go. It's helping them get there. And the reason why
that's a great definition, by the way. That's a fantastic definition.
I win. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. But yeah, I think scripts are so important too, because just like you said, where it's like, if you don't know where you're going, if you are the one who's trying to keep up and where are we going next, then you can't lead anyone anywhere. Why would they follow you? You're making it up as you go. So it's one of the things where the scripts and truly understanding to the point where it's second nature to you is the only thing that allows you to step out of that fear-based, what is happening next, fight or flight type of, persona, and into this way where it's like, no, I understand the direction, and now I can really truly understand your needs and help you get there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And what you said is how you establish trust, right? Doing all of the things we talk about establishes trust with a client. And once you get to a base of trust, you're in. Like I'm telling you, once a client trusts you, we have a unique job in the fact that most clients, it's a high percentage. I think NAR's statistics is like 80% of clients, and knowing that most statistics are made up, but 80% of clients stick with the first agent they meet in the field. And if you meet them twice within 7 days in the field, it goes up to high 90s, right? They'll almost never leave you. And the way you get them to meet you is you establish trust on a phone call. And once you establish trust on a phone call, that client is yours. And if you follow up well, they're going to be yours for life, and their family is yours too. So you really need to, that's kind of the recipe of what we're talking about is to the ingredients is to the recipe of trust, right? Because once you build trust over the phone, which you can do much faster than you think, just by once people realize you're genuine, they realize that you're going to tell them the truth. They know that you're listening to them, all of those things. And then all of a sudden you have this person who doesn't know you that well, but they trust you. And then the rest of your job gets much, much easier.
So for someone who's listening and they're like, man, I want to establish trust. I am a genuine person. I will tell them the truth. I'm a great listener, but I still feel like I stumble. I still feel like maybe I'm nervous and I don't know what to say. So is there any chance that you'd be willing to kind of go through what you do when you first get on the phone with maybe, let's do a buyer the first time you're reaching out to them?
Yeah.
Again, I keep putting you on the spot.
No, really it's all good. Give me 1 second. So we are a leads-based brokerage. So I want to give you that kind of
what does that mean?
Heads up. So that means that people come to us based on some type of marketing that they've gotten that brings them to our website. They start looking at homes on our website and put in their information, and that's what allows me to reach out to them. Although these days, because I don't prospect much, which I don't recommend getting away from, but running the brokerage has really kind of pulled me away from prospecting. A lot of my business comes from old leads and referrals that have used me for years and continues to come back. But so basically, the intro that we're going to use is, hey, this is Scott. And this is something that I think is really important when you're first calling a client, is that you do what's called assuming the decision maker. So many people call up and say, hey, is this Shelby? Well, if you say that, that gives Shelby the opportunity to say, no, this sure isn't Shelby. Sorry, click, right? If it is a female sounding voice and you have a female's name, then you just say, hey, Shelby, this is Scott from You First Realty. The reason that I'm calling is you expressed some interest in that Denver property that I posted on Facebook. Is Denver the only city you're considering? What you've done right there is now you've gotten to a question that somebody who's interested in real estate is more than likely going to answer, right? They're usually going to say, I'm looking in Denver, but I love Aurora, or I work in Denver, whatever, right? You're going to get an answer to that. And so really, it's just a very short intro that gets you to a question that they're more than likely going to answer.
Yeah, I think, yes. When you were doing that, I thought you were going to stop at the reason why I'm calling is you've expressed interest in this property. I thought you were going to say, is that correct? And I feel like that's what people would normally do. Is that correct? But then you threw me for a loop there with is Denver the only city you're considering? Because in my head, the psychology was like, well, now I want to answer that. I actually wanted to answer, whereas before I wanted to get off the phone. It was a weird little twist.
And that's the problem, is that people ask questions that people don't want to answer. Look, everybody even if somebody's interested in buying real estate from you, or in general, now maybe not necessarily from us, but in general, we have been trained, our grandparents didn't deal with many phone sales calls. Our parents started to deal with phone sales calls. We have dealt with phone sales calls for decades, right? Our instinct, if you call me and want to sell me something, is to just hang up the phone. Like, I'm going to end this, and I will look for any out. As soon as you give me an out, I'm done. And so you've got to get to a place where you're getting to a place where people are more than likely going to want to answer you because you sound different, you sound energetic, you sound enthusiastic. People do not want to talk to people who call up and be like, hi, Shelby, you are on my website and maybe looked at a house, and maybe not in those words, but I can't tell you how many sales calls I get that somebody sounds that effective or ineffective. And you get off the phone, but somebody calls you and they sound excited and enjoyable, and they like their job, and like they woke up this morning and drank a cup of coffee and didn't want to throw themselves off a roof. Like, you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, let's talk. Like, okay, that sounds exciing to me. Tonality. And so I think you can really control that pace and that tone. Yes,
dude, tonality and the pace too. All of that stuff has such an impact. That it's crazy to me too that I feel like this part, the deep dive into the words and the psychology behind it, and then also, like you said, the energy and the tone and the pacing, all of that stuff makes or breaks conversations. And I don't know, I feel like it's never talked about. Okay, so we're at the point where you asked me, is Denver the only city that I'm considering? My answer is no, Scott. And then how does it go?
Sure. So now I will say typically when, no, Scott. Oh, great. What other cities are you looking at?
I don't know money around Denver. So let's just make up you said Aurora?
Yeah.
Perfect. That too.
Awesome. Well, dream with me a little bit. Tell me about what your perfect house looks like.
Oh man. It is 5,000 square feet, and it's on 5 acres. It's got an in-ground heated pool. Am I dreaming big enough for you?
No, look, you're making my dreams come true. That sounds like a gorgeous home. Like, you probably want to be in Cherry Hills for sure.
Okay. I'm moving from out of state, so honestly, I don't know the area. Cherry Hill?
Yeah, Cherry Hills is like one of the best communities in Denver.
Okay.
All right, hold on. I need a pen and paper. I'm going to need all this information later.
We're going hard at it.
This is the other thing is when someone's telling you stuff, write it down.
Oh my gosh.
Real quick, before we get back to the episode, 2 things I wanted to share. First, thank you so much for tuning in week after week. It really means the world to all of us. Second, we feel like we're just getting started. If you enjoy what we do here, please follow us on this app, share an episode, or give us a quick review. I promise we're working hard behind the scenes to make this show as good as possible now and into the future. Thanks, guys. Back to the show.
Yes. And
It's funny,
on
actually.
that, yeah.
Have a buddy who was looking for an in-ground heated pool, and it was like the hardest thing in the world to find.
Well, I imagine it must be in Colorado too, because it gets cold out there. I don't know if that, I feel like the energy bill to be heated, I don't know. That's the whole thing. Question, side note real quick, you said write it down. So I know your system for the phones and the names. Do you use a CRM? If yes, what do you use? Or what's your process?
We use Chime.
Okay.
We use Chime, and I highly recommend putting your notes, taking copious notes, keeping them in Chime or whatever CRM you use. And there's lots of, there's tons, high levels of good, cheap CRM. There's tons of like good, cheap CRMs that you can get. If your brokerage doesn't provide one, go get one, because this doesn't work that well. You think it does. If you don't have a CRM, what I would tell you is, and if you're just like, I refuse to spend the money on a CRM, another hack that I have for you, instead of writing stuff, never use Post-it notes. If you are someone that uses Post-it notes, throw every one of them away today, because they're information vacuums. That sticky doesn't last forever. It's going to go away. And don't write down stuff on like random pieces of paper. Get yourself a notebook like this, and every day when you come in, simply put the date at the top of the page, right? And take all of your notes for that day on that page. Because one thing you'll know is, I know what day I talked to them. And then you can go back to that day in your notebook and you can find all of your notes. Because if you've got it on random pieces of paper or Post-it notes, it's gone.
Done. Okay.
Yes.
We ready? I feel like I gotta stretch.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm here for Cherry Hill. I'm here maybe for Aurora. That's my answer.
Awesome. Are you looking for a single family home, or would you be open to a condo or a townhome?
Oh, good question. I think I'm open to a condo or a town. I like how you phrased that too. Open. Yes, I'm open to those.
Perfect. And how many bedrooms do you need?
In my 5,000 square foot home, just a 3-2 would be great.
Okay, that sounds amazing.
Yeah,
and
really big
what
rooms.
are those extra bedrooms for? Kids, animals, office?
Oh, an office and then a guest room.
Oh, you're going to have a lot of people visiting you in your 5,000 square foot house.
Yep.
But only one at a time.
Yep.
What are your must-haves in a home?
Oh,
For me, it's like I have to have a big backyard so my dog can run around. What would it be for you?
Ooh, that was smooth. That inserting personal, more connected. Because now I'm going to be like, yeah, my dog too. Same. That's important.
Right?
Yeah.
Big backyard.
Right. And maybe a must have is so I can cook for my one guest. I would really like an open concept kitchen that's updated already.
I will tell you what's cool about Denver is they are taking old homes that were very shut off, and they're blowing walls out when they remodel them and making everything open. So it's very easy to find open concepts here.
Nice.
Do you rent right now?
Yes.
Oh my God, renting's the worst.
Yeah.
How much is your current rent payment?
$3,000 a month.
That's got to be painful. Tell me what that $3,000 a month gets you.
It gets me a very small house. It's like 1,000 square feet. Okay, my stories. This is getting ridiculous. Yeah, it doesn't get me much, and yeah, I can't wait to have a bigger home.
And you're moving from Kentucky, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Do you like the area you're in Kentucky?
I do. Yeah. It's nice.
What do you like about it?
Well, I like that it's quiet and it's safe. It's super convenient to the groceries and Starbucks and Chick-fil-A, but it's like tucked away within a neighborhood. So that way there's, not a lot of traffic. Convenient, but also still quiet within its own little neighborhood.
And just to take a time out, why would I ask that question of somebody moving from out of state?
Because the listeners are not going to answer. Because if you can identify what I like about what I'm living, what I have now, then it gives you insight about what's important to me. So I told you it's convenient to Chick-fil-A, or, I like that it's close to grocery stores. Now, those are things that in theory, if I like it here, then I might want it there. Did I get it right?
Yes, 100%. That's exactly right. People think like, if they're moving from out of state, I don't care about where they live. No, I want to know everything. Right? Because now I know I need to, like you said, I need to get you close to a Chick-fil-A. I know you like Starbucks. So if we're driving through a neighborhood when you come out to visit here and I can show you where the Chick-fil-A and the Starbucks is, again, that's building trust because I was listening to you. You're like, oh, those are my two favorite places.
Yeah. There's so much of what you say that I think leads back to, and I wrote this on my sheet on the side, like curiosity. The word just curiosity, because if you are curious, which you are, you're like, oh, what do you like about this and what's important to you and what about that is important to you? Then just by being curious and asking the questions, you will learn so much helpful information to build the trust and find exactly what they're looking for and lead them to their next great, purchase or sale.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's important that and it goes back to that being patient and not rushing, because so many agents, when they get somebody on the phone, they want to rush to the appointment, right? Like I want to rush and try to get the appointment. But if you manage the call correctly, the appointment is a given. You don't have to, they're going to set the appointment with you. If you've done all these things, learned about them, know they're qualified, we get, get all of the information that you need to make sure they're a prospect, not a suspect. And then it validates that there's somebody that you can actually take out and buy a house. And you've had all these conversations and they know my dog's name and I know their dog's name and they know my kid's name and I know their kids' names. Then they're meeting a friend and it makes it much easier. And it's not being fake. I feel like if people rush through to set the appointment, that is being fake. If you're having a genuine conversation with somebody and learning about them and they're learning about you, you're doing you both a favor. First of all, you're meeting a new person, and people spend thousands of dollars a year to go to networking events to never get clients. I've got somebody on the phone who's interested in me. I'm interested in them. And at the end of the day, they're interested in buying a house. And so I'm not going to blow that opportunity by rushing through. And like you said, not being curious, not asking those additional questions.
Okay, so in this call, you're continuing to ask the questions, go in deep, share insight about you as a person and gaining insight about them as people. And then, so you go through this process, you're finding out what I'm looking for. Do you also hit the money on the first, can you walk me through the rest of the phone call?
Yeah. So, we're going to learn about credit, income, debt, and savings on that call. We're going to ask them questions about what does their credit look like, and we have an amazing thing in Denver called CHAFA, which is basically a down payment assistance program. It's phenomenal. It's not in every state. They pay a little bit higher interest rate, but it gifts them the 3.5% down payment. And it's a gift. It's a silent second. So it sits on the back of their mortgage. They have to pay it off if they refinance or sell. So we use talking about CHAFA to be able to learn about somebody's credit score, because you got to have at least a 620 to qualify. So we're gonna ask them if they've ever heard of CHAFA. If they haven't, we're gonna very briefly explain to them what it is, high level, and then be like, oh, you just need a 620 credit score to apply. What was your credit the last time you checked it? And so that's how we get credit. We're going to talk about income. You're going to get in depth in income. You're going to ask them about their income. You're going to ask them about their spouse's income. You're going to ask them if it doesn't look like they make a lot of money. Sometimes people think, oh, call's over. No, you're going to ask them, do they have somebody that could co-sign if necessary? Because sometimes mom or dad or aunt or uncle or grandfather is absolutely willing to co-sign for the house. So you're going to ask these in-depth questions that for a lot of people, they think only a lender is going to ask them. But the difference between when I hand off a client to my lender and when other agents hand off a client to their lender is when I hand them off to my lender, I'm able to tell my lender, this is a qualified person. We just need to verify what they've told me. Or, hey, this person's credit is terrible. We need to get them in some credit repair. And lenders have amazing simulators. They can run it through, tell them exactly what to do. I've closed a lot of business off of other people's no's. So, somebody talks to me, they're like, oh, and this actually probably about 6 months ago, I had a client that was a referral from an old client. And they're like, oh my gosh, he's been turned down by lenders. He's been turned down by agents. Nobody will work with him. So I talked to him, understood what was wrong with his credit, got him over to Melanie, the best lender in the business. I love Melanie to death. She's amazing. And he needed a few little things to be done on his credit. It took us like 45 days to get him qualified, and now he's living in a house. And so don't think just because somebody else denied somebody, whatever, you probably can still get them closed in a reasonable amount of time. You really need to understand their debt. So you need to ask them about car payments. You need to ask them about student loan payments. You need to ask them about credit card payments. Don't be afraid to ask these questions. One thing that I learned when I was a mortgage broker is that I can get somebody's social security number in under 9 minutes on almost any phone call. And I'm just a human being. You can do it too. So don't think that someone's not going to answer these questions for you if you ask them in a way after you've built all this trust and now they know you're trying to help them get into a home. So ask the questions, find out about all the stuff they have going on financially. Do they have savings? Is it a 401k? Is it easily accessible? Is it in a savings account? You want to find out all this information so that then at the end of the call, when you set that appointment, people say, oh, I don't meet people that aren't pre-qualified. I meet people all the time that aren't pre-qualified because I have enough information about them to know that, okay, this is likely someone that can buy a house. Or sometimes I'll meet people who likely can't buy a house because I want to meet them in the field and build a relationship and get their referrals. So it is a very probing call, but it's probing in a kind way where people are going to want to give you the information.
Okay. And then after you've gone through all of that, how do you seal what does the end of it look like?
Yep. So the end of the call is very simple. I'm going to pull up a house that matches what they're looking for on my CRM or through our website. I'm going to text them that house. I'm going to say, what do you think of this house? 9 times out of 10, they're going to be like, oh my God, that's exactly what I'm looking for. And then I'm going to be like, cool, I have time later today. I can meet you at 6 o'clock tonight. 6 o'clock doesn't work. Cool. What time works tomorrow? Tomorrow doesn't work. Awesome. What time works this weekend? We could do Saturday at 10 a.m. Perfect. I'll see you Saturday at 10 a.m. I'm going to send you a few other houses between now and then. And then I'm going to meet them out there Saturday at 10 a.m. with 4 or 5 houses already booked, and we're going to go house to house. And then I'm more than likely going to get them to write an offer that day.
I wish we had more time. We may have to have you come back, Scott, because I really do enjoy the very tactical, exactly what to say and digging into the details. When you listen to a podcast, sometimes when you're like, oh, that's just such a great story, but I don't know what to do. I like that with you. I feel like people can listen to this and actually know what to do. But we are almost done for today. I have one question before we had to wrap up. So what does the future look like for you? You have the brokerage. Do you plan on forever, or what does the future hold?
That's a great question. I do a little bit of wholesaling. I belong to an amazing real estate mastermind group run by Hobby Hinoho, and it's the Billionaire Boardroom. If you don't belong to a mastermind, go join one. Like, get a group of smart people and be the dumbest person in the room. I love being the not smartest person in the room because it really helps me grow. Looking into a few different investment avenues and really want to grow my brokerage. My goal one day is 100 agents. I've got a long way to go because I'm not that good at recruiting. I don't know why. It seems to be my Achilles heel. But yeah, I'm going to get better at recruiting and we're going to grow this thing.
Dope. Okay. Wrap up question number 1. What events are you going to this year where anyone listening to this might be able to see you in person if you are going to events?
I'm going to Cancun for the $1 billion boardroom here at the end of October. And then I'm going to a conference in Pennsylvania. But those are really the only 2 events I have planned this year.
What is the conference in Pennsylvania?
It is actually about how to buy and sell mobile home parks.
Very cool. Okay.
Yeah, I've got a buddy of mine who's a pretty heavy investor, and he wants me to learn that so we can do that, which is exciting. I love doing new things. My problem is I get bored doing things, and then I'm like squirrel, and then I'm off doing something else. So, I like learning new stuff as much as possible.
Where can listeners find you? Someone out there, they're thinking, I want to be a part of Scott's brokerage. I live in Denver. I've been looking for just you. Or maybe they have referrals that they want to send your way. Where's the best place for people to find you?
Easiest place is my cell phone, 720-252-7037. I'm one of those rare agents that almost always answers my phone. You can email me at scott@youfirst.com, and it's just YOU, the number 1, S like Sam, T like Tom.com. Those are probably the 2 best ways to reach out to me. I'm on Facebook at You First Infinity is the Instagram. I'm a little bit older, so I'm not as social media savvy as some younger folks.
And guys, when you're finding him on Instagram, it's YOU and then the number 1 ST.
Yes.
So first
Infinity.
With the number 1
Yep.
Infinity.
You first, like first place, not the word first.
That's right. Number 1 for Scott. That's right. Okay, guys. And you know that if you want to hang out with me or Aaron, who's the owner of the show, you can find us on the gram at The Shelby Show or Aaron Amuchastegui. Hit us with feedback. We want to know what you like, what you don't like, who you want to, have interviewed, what topics you want us to find speakers on and go deep on. So please let us know. And that is all we have for today. Scott, thank you so much for coming on the show.
No, I appreciate you, Shelby. Thanks for having me. It was a great conversation.
I agree. Loved it. And Real Estate Rockstars, thanks for listening.